Hello everybody, welcome to another video on High Schoolers Debate, a platform for students to discuss politics and express their views. We hope that you will enjoy this video, and as always, take care. Welcome guys to today's topic. We'll be discussing gun control, and the question is, should the current US government implement further restrictions on individuals to purchase a firearm? And today, let's introduce our fellow participants.
I am C, for communist. I am arguing that the government should not implement further gun restrictions.
I am Kay. I'm here to learn more about this issue and the debate surrounding it.
Hi, I'm S. I'm a social democrat, and I am for intensive gun restriction.
I am T, which is for tanky. I'm an authoritarian communist, and I am for further gun restriction.
Hi, I am V. I was formerly M in the last debate, but I'm changing my alias to V to better represent my ideology. I'm a voluntarist, and I believe that all associations and transactions within society should be voluntary, and as such, I'm a huge supporter of gun rights, and I oppose gun control.
Hi, I'm X. I am a moderate liberal, and I am in favor of implementing further gun restrictions in the United States.
Alright, so in terms of gun control, what do you guys see as the benefits, say if we had less restrictions on guns, or what are the benefits maybe if we had more restrictions? And each of you guys give your side and what improvements you can see for your side.
I believe that the benefit of less restrictions to guns is that it is a lot harder to have an armed uprising against the government if nobody has a gun. I am for people to have guns because people having guns makes a communist revolution a lot easier to do.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Wait. Okay, I'm anti-gun. First of all, I see that as a large negative to having guns, but it's not my main issue with guns. Further gun restrictions would get guns out of potentially violent people's hands, and I'm sure, as in other places, that if we had more restrictions on guns, we'd see a lowering in gun-related deaths and gun-related crimes.
yeah, I mean, I think I kind of agree with that. I also a little bit agree with Jackson. I do agree with Jackson that would be a positive if an armed socialist revolt became easier because of more guns, but I do think that the lack of socialist uprisings, current socialist uprisings in the United States should make it pretty clear that even with lots of guns, those revolutions are not particularly easy to accomplish. And I think that in the meantime, you're just seeing so many people die to, being shot with guns that I think that would be, I mean, I sound kind of dumb, but this is pretty simple. Less guns equals less people with guns equals less people shooting each other, which is good because I don't want people to shoot each other.
All right, as a voluntarist, I do believe that gun control is coercive and is not valid, but I also believe, in agreement with C, I believe that guns are important for defense against a tyrannical government. Any government which violates your rights should not be allowed to continue, and that's why one big reason why you should have guns. Revolt could be part of that. If the government tries to force you to stay in your home during a pandemic, which I believe is illegitimate, you should also have guns for that situation. If the police are being brutal and are executing people in the streets, that's another reason why you want guns. Both of those two examples are actually very relevant given recent events, and yeah, in general, I think guns are very important to defend yourself against coercive authority.
So my views are pretty similar to S's. I believe that if you implement more gun restrictions, it will be easier to lessen the amount of shootings that happen, either mass murders or just general shootings that occur in our everyday lives. And to counter C's point, if there ever were a revolution, I think that even if every person in America had a gun, we would be severely outnumbered by the United States government because their weapons are so much stronger than what is available to the general public.
Well, I would like to respond to that.
I would also like to respond to that.
C, you can go first.
I'd like to respond to your response.
C first, then
I'd
me,
like
then
to-
we
I'd
can
like
respond
go
to
after
ask-
that.
I'd
know.
I'd
I
like
just
to
know what they're
clash.
gonna respond because I could respond to that negatively.
I'd like to clash there. I think I would argue that while it is true that a revolution is still difficult with or without guns, to say that a revolution is impossible either way is ridiculous. And I feel that while it is true that the U.S. military is very strong, in the past there have been groups like if you look at like the Taliban, for example, they've got old Russian AK-47s, and they still control like half of Afghanistan fighting against the U.S.
I do not want to hold a revolution, and also I believe that there are means of the government do not involve armed conflict, and I believe that there are ways to prevent mass murders in the streets by policemen. And because of that, also what S said about more guns equals more possibilities of death. So less guns is the opposite of that, more potential lives saved. I want more restrictive gun laws or similar law. Well, yeah.
I would like
I
to bring
wanna-
up a quick point.
I
I
okay.
do
I
not
wanna jump
believe
in and
that a
respond to
revolution
X.
is
Oh,
impossible.
wait, let X respond to C.
Okay.
So I just wanted to mention that I don't believe that a revolution is impossible per se. I don't believe that anything is impossible. But at the same time, I think that disarming as many people as possible would lead to less deaths if such an event were to occur. And I don't think right now a revolution is anywhere near likely.
Okay,
I
so
also
I would
agree.
like to
Okay.
respond to both of X's last points. First, X said that the U.S. military could crush an armed rebellion. Well, technically that is true, but if the U.S. military were to do such a thing, imagine how that would look in the international community, and that would require some sort of martial law to accomplish and bringing in the military. And the point is that the army would not be willing to do that. Because that would be an overt violation of the Constitution at that point. And people, or if they were banning guns, that would be an overt violation of the Constitution. But in general, if the military was going to crush an armed uprising, I think people would be hesitant to send out the military for that. The point is to make it really, really hard for the government to respond with the military, because no one wants to rule over like a barren wasteland of just war and destruction. And secondly, you said that disarming more people will lead to fewer deaths during the revolution. Well, there's also a counter effect there. Disarming more people makes it harder for people to make change with firearms. Like, part of the point of firearms is to resist government regimes. Like, I think recently, if the government had implemented martial law, people would be justified in uprising against that and using firearms to oppose police power. And I think in this case, they are also justified in doing that.
I just
would
want
like
to
to
respond.
respond to that.
Can
Sure.
I
Sorry,
respond to
go
his
ahead.
first point, and then I don't have a response to his second point as of this moment. I just want to respond to his idea that crushing a revolution would lead to bad PR on the international stage, which I just want to say that I do not agree with that, because like, so did everyone get pissed when we invaded the South in the Civil War. Like, it
No.
just it doesn't. When
yes,
when,
the
when
international
there's a
situation back
Actually,
then
they
was
did,
much,
though.
when
much
there's
different.
when there's a
Yeah,
that
back
was
then
because
the
of cotton
international
exports,
community
dude.
was
That was
Yeah,
actually
and the
literally because,
international situation was
that's
so
literally
Guys, let
because
us
of
finish his
cotton.
point.
That was literally because of cotton exports in Britain which Britain was dependent on, and so they were slightly pro helping the South because of just nature of the Southern economy. But I don't think that would happen in a modern day revolution. So I do not think that the U.S. would be condemned for putting down a rebellion. Typically, the international stage is pro status quo.
No,
And I think
I would
that
disagree.
would stay the same.
I think
I
the
would
UN
like
would
to
be
bring
pretty
up-
mad if that happened. But anyway, you can go ahead, X.
I would like to respond to V's point as well. Kind of dovetailing off of what S was saying. If the United States military did end up facing a revolt from the American people, I really do believe that the government would eventually, maybe not right away, but eventually resort to violent means in order to suppress the violence, just based off of historical protests. For the most part, throughout the United States history, if a protest became violent, police officers, under the order of the federal government and local governments as well, would resort to violent means of suppressing the protesters to end it. So I don't believe that a situation with a revolt against the federal government would lead to a different result.
So I have a question for you guys, and like it is especially for people who support gun control, is that when we're dealing with gun control, should we restrict what kind of firearms are allowed for the public use, or should we restrict it in terms of what kinds of people, like whether they have previous criminal records or if they have certain mental health issues? Like, is the discussion more about, say, someone who isn't mentally fit, or just banning certain weapons, or is it a mix of both?
Okay, wait, hold on. I want to respond quickly to X's point, and then we can get to that. Yes, it's true in the past that governments have been supportive of other authoritarian regimes, but I think that our country was founded on classically liberal values, and the people here would not tolerate that as much as they would in other countries, which would lead to, I think, there would have to be more overt military force to crush like a revolt, especially if like the large conservative population got involved, and because like partially a lot of members of the police and the military are supporters of the Second Amendment, and if that was threatened, then I feel a good portion of them would turn against their commanders, and there would perhaps be lower level within the police and the military, which is a good thing. And yeah, and secondly, even yes, it's possible. Yes, I do think that when it comes down to it, there's a good chance that the government could use the military to crush a rebellion, but there's also a chance that the rebellion could succeed. And then you have to ask yourself this: would you rather submit to tyranny, or would you rather take the chance of revolting against tyranny and securing your rights, like we did back in 1776? Now, granted, that was not perfect by any means. Our moral community was way too small because we allowed slavery, and there are some other issues with the government as well. But it was better than a British monarchy, and that is one example of a revolution being successful. There are others as well. Yeah, the question is, do we want to submit to tyranny, or do we want to use power to overthrow that? Anyway, that's my point. If you'd like to respond, go ahead.
I would actually. So I think your point has a lot of hypotheticals in it. The hypothetical that there would actually be a revolution in the first place, and the even smaller chance that we would actually win that revolution and overthrow the government. I think allowing for less gun restrictions based on a slim hypothetical is less, I don't know what the word for it is, but it's less important, I guess, than going based off of current statistics, which show that there are a great number of mass murders in this country, specifically school shootings, that you don't see in a lot of other countries where there is strict gun control for the general public. And I think that that's a really important fact
Okay.
that hasn't really been brought up.
Okay, I would like to counter saying that the hypothetical, like one, I could dig into the school shootings thing, but there's another point I'd like to counter more. You said that it's like a slim hypothetical. I don't think so. Like, do you remember back before the whole police brutality debate was a big thing, and there were armed right-wingers marching into government buildings? That scared the government. That scared the establishment. To the point where, at this point, they've actually formed a committee to deal with these quote-unquote domestic terrorist groups. For example, Antifa and the Boogaloo Boys. Antifa was able to establish an autonomous zone in Seattle and burn down plenty of buildings. And the Boogaloo Boys were able to get in to state buildings and stand outside of the governor's door, fully decked out in military-grade gear. And as a result, now we have the government going after those dissident groups. That shows that those sorts of actions have an effect. They can make a change.
Yes, they can.
And
make a
just the
change.
fact that they even threaten revolution.
Right now, it's a negative change, though.
No, it's a positive change. The fact that they
It's
threaten
a negative change
revolution
for them. Unless you think that going after extremist groups.
Right. It's resulted in reaction from the government, but I think
Right,
if
but
the
it's
reaction
gonna be
goes
the
too
same
far,
reaction.
then
The
then
reaction's
that
gonna be
will.
the same every time.
Yes, let me finish.
Right, that is true. But every time they try to overstep their bounds, then there will be more and more people scrutinizing the government and asking about civil rights, as they should. And those extremist groups will become more and more potentially violent, threatening the status quo, which is the goal.
The status quo has done an excellent job of portraying those groups as violent and anti-civil liberty. So
Right. No. I
I-
don't think
The
that. I
problem
don't think
is
the
there
status
are
quo
enough
portrays them as
people-
anti-civil liberty, because they portray them as fanatically pro-civil liberty to the point where they want too much civil liberty.
right, which most people are not going to endure. Like most people dislike that heavily and won't
Right,
support
and that's
that.
because most people
and
are
so most people are
I-
pro status quo in this country.
right, and that is a problem. The status quo is a problem.
Could you
Right,
possibly
And when we
explain?
give
At this
dissidents,
current-
we
At this current moment, it's not going to change, and having guns wouldn't
no,
do
it is
anything.
changing. Actually, more people are being radicalized by the whole police brutality thing, and I think that it is totally
Well,
possible whenever the government gains more power to radicalize people into libertarians.
Thanks for watching to the end. A part 2 will be coming soon. If you want to be notified when we upload our videos or choose our topic, subscribe here at our YouTube channel or follow us on Instagram. As always, take care.